Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Ramsey with the Empire Life podcast, where we interview influencers from all around the world on how they launch their online empires. And we are a conscious tech and digital marketing company. We guide influencers in launching their online empires in the Empire Life Academy. And today we're with our special, amazing guest, whom I found on his Facebook amazing group where he does, he really helps. He's always there for the Facebook members in his group. And we're with Mirza. He's the founder of iSocialU, plus a startup advisor in Dallas, Texas. So we're like neighbors. And iSocialU is a social media agency in Dallas. And I'll hand it over to Ali to intro himself a little bit more.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this show. And yes, I live in Dallas, Texas. A couple of things. I run a social media agency called iSocialU. And, there are a lot of people who are doing social stuff, right? Digital marketing. So the way I differentiate myself, we're not focused on one specific channel. So we're not Instagram experts or Facebook experts. People come to us or clients come to us with business problems. And then it's sort of our job to look at those business problems and see what social tools, tactics, and strategies are going to work for them. So that's how we are different from other social media agencies. And in addition to that, I'm also advisor to a lot of startups in Dallas.
Nice. And have you had your own startup? I mean, this is a startup, right? iSocialU. Do you feel like you learned a lot through that, and then part of your mission is to give back and be like a mentor or advisor? Can you dive into that a little bit more? Can you tell me about that?
So yes. So I did quit my 9-to-5, I believe in 2014, and started iSocialU. But I've also built some mobile app startups in Dallas, and that's how I got connected into the Dallas startup ecosystem, because I thought of an idea and then found a team and then outsourced the development and then raised actually some money for that idea. It was a tech mobile app startup, which we actually shut down this year. But going back to your question, so iSocialU, you can say it's a startup, a service-based organization. But then I also built in my previously a mobile app, which was another different product-based startup. So I have actually looked into when people talk to me and they're running a service-based business, or some people, they have product-based business, the good thing is I can relate to both.
Because you've had experience in both. I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
And you're right. I think when it comes to the social media landscape right now, there are a lot of people, because everything is changing so fast, right? There are more channels, right? So LinkedIn is so different now than what it used to be. Facebook groups are so different now what it used to be. So I think part of my mission now is not just to serve my clients, but also share my knowledge and the things that I have learned and things that I do with other people, and to give back as much as possible. And that's why you'll see in my Facebook group or a lot of it. I'm learning. Here's how I'm building my personal brand. And if you want to do the same thing, follow these steps.
Yes, because you've seen that be successful.
Yes, because it kind of all goes back to, because 2018 and 2019, I think even beyond, if you like and trust someone, that's when you're gonna do business with that person, right? So to establish that like, and trust factor, how do we do that? By producing content, because we actually there are a lot of people online, we don't know them, we never met them, we know them through their content, right? So by producing consistent content, or in other words, some people say by building your personal brand, that's how you can help more people, that's how you can serve more people, and that's how you can build your business.
Yes, and that comes with having some kind of expert or using an automation system. And we have an Empire Life social media automation system that really helps that, because it all goes back, like you're saying. I hear you saying it all goes back to that consistency of producing and putting out that content, like becoming the content hub and the expertise of what your company is. because
Mm-hmm.
then people relate to you. I'm sure you hear this all the time. And people say to me, even before I had this call with you, I already feel like I know you because I see you
Yep.
all
Yep.
the freaking time. I see you on live. I see your content. I get this. It becomes an online experience. You want to look at yourself, whatever content you're putting out there. I hear you
Yeah.
saying this.
And you know,
Yeah.
I think recently on your show, I think Zach Benson, he's a Instagram expert, good friend of mine. He was on the show, and I think you guys were talking about um, something along the lines of 8 touches. Like
Mm.
you have to touch someone like multiple times. It may not be 8, it has to be like multiple times. So once you kind of touch base with someone multiple times, then you establish that no trust, no like and trust factor. And I think that is huge. My opinion or my point of view is every single business owner does have a personal brand, and they should take it seriously, and they should manage it with more intention and with more purpose.
Mm. That's gold. That's gold. Anybody listening, take it. There's one thing you want to take away from this podcast. Everybody has their personal brand. Sometimes I make a joke about that and I say, if somebody tells me, oh, yeah, I don't have a brand, I'm just like, I have this business, but I don't really have a brand. I'm like, look, if you're producing or promoting cat videos on your Facebook, that's your brand.
Yep.
You do
Yep.
have a brand. Everybody
Yeah.
does. And so look at what you're putting out there. That's your brand.
That's your brand. And then, I say, what people think or say about you, you're not in the room, that's your brand.
Mm.
And that's my Facebook statuses. That's my, even like interviews like this, my produce courses, that's my courses, that's my LinkedIn activity, that's everything. And you know what's crazy? I think we all know this right now. When we apply for jobs, many times the HR managers or even the hiring managers, they will go to your LinkedIn, they will go to your Facebook and check you out. And actually there are tools that let them do it, that help them with that sort of, it's they just want to learn more about the potential person that they're going to hire in the company. So everyone, I believe you do have a brand. It's just a matter of realizing it and accepting it, and then start managing it with more intention and more purpose.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Do you have any personal stories you would like to share on us about that you share with your clients to help inspire them to
So
kind of get into that intention?
yes, so many. I can, a lot of clients and even the people that reach out to me in the startup community, and maybe they're looking for an advisor or a mentor. I I can go back, and I think 90% of them, they found me because I was producing some sort of content online. It's like how we connected. I saw your Facebook lives, right? And you shared in your group, and you were sharing in my group. We got connected through the content, aka through our personal brands, right? So many of my clients, so many of my people who I advise on startup, they check me out on LinkedIn or other places and see what type of content I'm producing. And if they're like, oh, this person, he knows what he's talking about, he seems like the expert sort of, right? Then they will sort of reach out to you. I've been, featured on Forbes. My courses are featured on Mashable, and most of that happened because I was producing content online, or because I was building my brand online. And actually, let me back up. It wasn't all like this. When I started my business in 2014, to be honest with you, I didn't pay attention to my personal brand at all. I was just focused on, because obviously you're moving from 9 to 5 to a business. You start making some money and you get excited. So you want to make more money and more clients and more money, right? So I got into that cycle, and I didn't focus on my personal brand. But then I realized that people, if they think you're the expert, they want to work with you.
Mm.
And the way to do that, is by consistently sharing your knowledge, the things that you know on consistent basis on the channels that you like. So, and then once I realized that, then it became a priority for me and my business. Now I take my personal brand very seriously. I produce content on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I create a lot of online courses, but it's all like planned. But it wasn't always like that.
I love that. Ali, can you tell me a personal story from when you were young that kind of it shaped who you are now, or it led you into this social media space? And it can be funny, it can be any kind that you want to share. This is the first one that comes to mind.
The first one that's a really interesting question. I don't think I've been asked that. Um, One of the things that I used to do, I wasn't, and I think I'm still not. I'm not extrovert at all. I'm introvert. So being
Oh,
a kid, I
okay.
remember I used to. I was a really good listener because my siblings and even my parents or other family members, they would come to me and talk to me, and I was the kind of kid that you could tell anything because that kid is not gonna say much, right? I think that kind of like quality, even now, it's funny, and I don't know, I think you work with a lot of clients too, so maybe you relate to this. Uh, the better listener I am when I have meetings with clients, the more chances I have to get their business. And I
Mm.
think this came from, and it's funny because I think it goes back to being self-aware. I can go back and look at the client meetings. Whenever I try to sort of like, hey, client, I'm the expert, come work with me, I did not close that deal. But whenever I approach that client meeting from the perspective of, hey, client, I'm listening to your problems, I can relate to your problems, and I can help you with problems. Like, I understand you, I get you. I had more chances of getting that client. So I think being a good listener is not something a lot of people like talk about, but I think if you're in service-based business like mine, that's a huge quality that comes from my childhood.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I'm kind of the opposite. I'm super extroverted, so that's a skill that I have needed to learn how to manifest or transform a personal transformation. And did I listen enough? Did I really hear them? Because people really do want to be seen and heard, like you're saying. That's what I hear you saying. And it does come naturally for me to let people know what I'm doing, which is a
Yep.
strength and a skill, and to be vulnerable with them, like, oh yeah, I've had that experience before. And then that's a huge point of connection. But I
Yep.
love that you brought that up. A lot of it is people on my team will remind me, when you're talking on the phone, are you pausing? And I'm like,
Mm.
oh crap, was I pausing? Sometimes I just continue with the conversation, but that sometimes
Yeah.
there needs to be that. It's really healthy to have a short pause and let what you
Yeah.
said sink in. So that's a
Yes.
great
Yeah. And
reminder to me. That's a strength of yours already.
yeah, and I think to me, like even before that, the biggest strength anyone can have is, in my opinion, is the self-awareness. Like the things there, I can I know clearly the things that I'm good at, and there's so many things that I suck at, right? And I think being self-aware, even if you're a lot of people actually they watch me because I teach a lot of courses and I produce a lot of video content too. So people would watch me and they'll be like, you're not an introvert, but I am an introvert. So and another thing, I think it just goes back to their moments. I also believe we're not like 100% introverts and extroverts. There are situations when we have some tendencies that take over the other ones. And I think once you know like what your strengths are, once you become more self-aware, you are more in the position of winning.
I love that. And with your advice as an advisor, how do you encourage like startup founders or anyone listening to this? What steps can they take? Let's say 2 to 3 things they can do actually today to become more self-aware. Or is that through experiences? Is that through diving in and then having trials and errors? What do you suggest?
So most of the biggest mistake that I'm seeing, most of the startups that I work with, and actually I've made those mistakes myself. And I think if you look around, most startups they figure out like they have an idea and they build like some sort of product, right? An app or a website or something. So in most cases, they figure out how to build the product, but they fail because they don't have any customers. So they have something, but they don't have anyone who is going to use that product, right? So the biggest thing I try to advise them is don't just build the product, build the community. So just like how you're creating a Facebook group and a community, I'm creating a Facebook group and a community in a different context. I believe every startup that the founder, maybe they have an idea for an app, a fashion app, a restaurant app, or whatever, either create that community or get closer to that community. And one example, sometimes I talk to different like college students, and they have really cool ideas about like food startups or fashion. And my number one thing to what I suggest them is you're creating your app for a community that you're not part of right now. So find a way to get closer to that community. And maybe in practical ways, maybe that means go join 10 Facebook groups that includes the audience that you want to serve with your product. Or maybe that means, go to meetup.com and search and then find those meetups and go attend those meetups every single month. So that's how what I advise them is don't just build the product, get closer to the community that you're building the product for.
I love that. And those things you mentioned, it's free. Also.
Yes, absolutely. It's just, I think
there's no reason, no excuse.
no excuse. And I think it's just the one awareness too, because a lot of, working on an idea, developing, writing code, it looks like really fancy and fun. So you keep on doing it, but going to meetups and exchanging business cards and listening to people, maybe like following up on the email, it looks like boring, right? So a lot of time people would not like do it. But I think that there is, when I launched my of years ago, it was a mobile app. I was in all the major newspapers in Dallas. So Dallas Morning News, Dallas Business Journal. I was on Product Hunt. And the reason I made all of those happen, because I was connecting with those communities. I was connecting with the right people during the development phase of my startup.
I love that. Like going to meetups, you're saying you were doing those things, going to meetups, reaching out to people. A lot of people, to touch on that too, they may feel it's vulnerable, especially maybe men. For example, I was interviewing another podcast member, and he was saying how it's sometimes, not to stereotype, but sometimes more hard for men to say what they need. So when you do go to those meetups, like openly talk about what you're working on and also what you need, because people don't know what you need. If you start the conversation by saying, "Oh yeah, I'm having this amazing event coming up and it's going to be fabulous, you should come," as opposed to a conversation by saying, "Hey, I'm having this amazing event and I need a few more sponsors. I would love to feature your company. How can I support you? How can you be part of my event?" That's a completely different conversation, letting them understand, oh, maybe if they can't sponsor it, they can lead you to somebody else that can be featured. Or if you need clients, saying, "Hey, this is what I'm offering. Oh, I have space for some more clients in my roster. And is this something you're interested in? Oh, you're not interested? Or you are? Let's talk further. Or if you're not, do you know somebody who is? Okay, cool. Okay. And then I have this referral bonus for you." That
So
feels so vulnerable for some people.
It does. And I think, I can relate, because being an introvert, it was so hard, looking back, when I was starting my business, it was so hard for me to go to meetups. It was so strange, because, I'm coming from 9 to 5 job, right? So I would go to work at 9, come home at 5, and then I'm done. That was like my life, right? So it was so hard to go to meetups and exchange business cards and kind of do the small talk. But I think what happens is, a lot of times when you put a pressure on yourself that, hey, I have to go and perform or get something done, then you kind of feel like you put a lot of pressure on you. So the hack for me was, I was like, I'm just gonna go. My commitment is to go to 2 meetups a month, and that's it. I'll have like 5 business cards. There's no pressure on me. If I go to 2 meetups a month, I win. So that's how I made it. I made my milestones super, super easy, because I'm the person that you're talking about, who's not, comfortable going to meetups or making those small talks. That's exactly who I was. Or maybe, still I am inside. But I think it just once you realize that, okay, this is not my strength, and then you're like, okay, so what do? Do I stop, or do I somehow play the game around my strengths? That's exactly what I did. And I recently, I've done a lot of podcasts, I've done a lot of keynotes, I've done a lot of like public speaking in Dallas. Back in 2014, I could not imagine any of that. Being the person that I was, I could not imagine talking to, like, standing in front of like a team of 5 people and giving a presentation or talking about like Facebook ads or how do you build your business, whatever. But it happened. And I think going back to your question, I believe if you are that person who's kind of, you feel unnatural or it feels like weird, like, do what you can with what you have, but do it right now. Then just show up and maybe sometime make just one friend. And, once you know one person, the next time sit next to that person. And then you'll know like 2 more people. So I think it'll come, but the worst thing we can do is realize that this is not our strength and then not do anything about that.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Completely agree. And
Yeah, and I think
want to.
you do a lot of events in Austin, right?
Yeah,
From
I do. I do. And in the very first event, I'm sure that my community has heard this story before, or if you haven't, that one of the very first events I ever did, it was again like my first one. So I no idea what I was doing. And I see myself eventually I'll have those massive Tony Robbins-esque kind of events because I absolutely adore and love it. The first one was terrifying. I was even before I was about to speak at my event, there was about 55 people that came to the first one. A great turnout for it, that never having one before. And I was shaking and I had like peppermint oil that I was breathing. I'm really into essential oils. And I was taking a lot of deep breaths, practicing my meditation and breathing techniques before, and it got better. Like the next time was a little easier. But I went to this meetup spontaneously a few months before my first event. When I went to this meetup, I did not have the event planned. I had no idea. The only idea I had was I'm going to have a live event. That's it. So I saw this meetup about 5 minutes before I was going to start. It was really close to my house. So I took off. I didn't even read the description. All I saw is it said entrepreneurship as a tag. Okay, that's for me. And I get there and it's all about real estate. Like, I'm not really in real estate. It's all real estate agents. All the speakers are super expert real estate agents in Austin. And afterwards, after they all talked, one of the ladies came up to me that was one of the speakers. I'm not knowing who she is. I just heard her speak. And I tell her, oh, yeah, thanks for speaking up there. I'm sure that was hard. I really appreciate what you're doing. It's awesome that you're here. I'm not super into real estate. So I start like really being vulnerable with her. I really have no idea what you're talking about because I'm not into real estate at all. But I'm so happy to be here. I didn't even know what this was about. I probably should have read about it. And she starts laughing and she's like, oh, yeah, I'm happy you're here too. So tell me more about you. Like, well, yesterday I had this vision in my meditation that I'm supposed to have a live event. So that's all that's been on my mind. Like, I feel it. Everybody's telling me you're supposed to do this. And she tells me, well, you know what? I organized this event that you're at here.
Wow.
So, oh, wow. There's about 60 or more people here. How did you pull this off? How did you bring all these people together? This is amazing. She said, well, are you on meetup.com? Like, do you have a group already? And I said, well, I was looking into it, but I was wondering if it was worth the investment. I didn't open one because I thought it will take me some time to build it up. She was like, perfect. Don't do it. Don't open one because when I get home, I'm going to be awaiting your email. I want you to send me an email and I will add you as a group admin.
Wow. Okay.
And I have 2. She told me I have 2 very successful Facebook groups that I've built out over the past 5 to 10 years. There's over 5,000 people in both of them in the Austin area. And any events you have, no matter what they're about, put them there, promote them. Your place, my platform is your platform.
Oh my God, look at that, right?
Right? Yeah, like, okay. All right. And then I'm sure more than half of the people that came to my first live event were from her platform,
Yeah, yeah.
from her
But
meetup.
see, there's a big lesson here because you kind of had an idea. It wasn't, the picture wasn't clear. You were scared. You didn't know what the next steps were, but you did it anyways, right? You went to that event anyways. You made that conversation, and then I think the things start happening like naturally. Going back to I think what we were talking about, do it anyways, and do in like small steps. Do what you can, with what you have, but do it right now. Don't wait for the perfect moment. So I think there's a big lesson here for all of us.
Exactly. And I learned so much in that first live event. I had a few guest speakers, and I'm sure that I was not the best at communicating with all of them or even knowing what to tell them how the event was going to be. And then I learned from that. I became better with my communication with all the speakers in the organization of what the event's going to look like. And now it's so much more seamless. But if I had never launched into that, into the unknown, overcoming that fear of having it, then I will have just stopped. So I completely agree with you. I wanted to ask you too, on the same note, what would you say, Ali, is the 2 to 3 top traits that you see in successful entrepreneurs? Or if somebody didn't have these traits, that they can cultivate these?
So I think number one, we kind of touched on this, being a good listener. It's so big because I feel people don't work with us because they think we are the experts. I feel people work with us because they think we can help them. Like this person knows my problems. He knows what business problems I have, and he can potentially help me. So I think being a good listener, because a lot of time I've made those mistakes when I was in the beginning doing public speaking. My goal, I thought public speaking means go and show the audience that you're the expert, Facebook ads better than anyone else. And then how naive that was. But over time I learned it's not about how much you know, it's about how much value you can give to your audience at that same level. So I think being a good listener is, I would say, that's probably on the top of the list. The other thing is also, especially in the digital space, things change so fast. Like Facebook is not what it used to be 2 years ago. Facebook ads are so different. Facebook groups, I think about 2 years ago, we didn't talk about Facebook groups. And now that's the first thing I believe people talk about when we talk about organic Facebook marketing. LinkedIn is changing. Instagram has changed a lot. So I think things change. So being a good listener, the second thing I would add to that list is being, always be learning. Always be, especially in the digital space, if you work in social media or video, or I think most of the people who are in our audience, they probably are in the digital space. So being a good listener, always be learning new stuff. And the third thing is, I call it ABT, always be testing. You know how so many times we will listen on a podcast, or maybe we read a blog article, and there's this guy and he talks about how I invested $1,000 in Facebook ads and I made $2.3 million, right? And when we go do the same things, we don't get the same result, right? How many times
Right.
that happens? A lot, right? So I always say, whatever you learn online, maybe from me or this content or any other person, always test it to yours, because your business, your situation, your audience, your product, your service is different. So whatever you learn online, put it to test. So those are the three things I would say, if the common traits, or anyone who wants to grow in the digital landscape: be a good listener, always be learning, and then always be testing.
I love those, Ali. And before we hop off, and I know you have you need to get off soon. And so before we hop off, if there's, let's say, Ali, you were going to start a new company today, and you were going to seek out a mentor, and you wish your mentor told you XYZ, you wish somebody had told you these things. If you can choose like the top 2 to 3 concepts that you can say, I wish somebody had told this to me when I was starting, what would you like to leave our community with?
So I think just kind of things that I've learned over time, and you probably laugh at some of these. Um, Manage your content consumption, because there's
Mm.
so much stuff online, right? So if I want to start a new business today, let's say I want to start an event management company or event management, something, there's so much information. I can spend all of my time consuming that information, and then there's nothing left to execute. So I think
Mm.
that's one thing I would tell people. There is a lot of information, and I do know that we have to read, we have to learn, because otherwise we stay the same. So that's why I say, instead of like eliminating your content consumption, manage it. That's number one that I would say. Number two, pay less attention to your competition. Looking back at my life, I can clearly see there were phases. There were phases when I made like significant growth, and that's the phase I didn't care what other people were doing. I didn't care how many other Facebook ad expert were in like Dallas. I didn't care what people were, what kind of blogs or videos they were publishing. I was just focused on my stuff. And that was the phase those are the phases when I made the most progress. But then there were other phases when I was more focused on other people and less on my execution. And that's when you get into the comparison trap, right? So how is that person producing a course which is making more money than me? How does that person have more clients than me? How does that person have bigger clients than me, right? So that would be number two. I would say, pay less attention. It's your life, it's your business, it's your game. The less attention you pay to your competition, the less distracted you are, and the more focus you can put onto your own execution. And then the last thing, the number three, I would say, nothing beats. We can talk about ideas, blogs, podcasts, videos, but it all comes down to action. Like, if you're not going to
Mm.
take action, nothing will change. That's the biggest reason I feel we stay stuck. And in most cases, we know all the answers, right? If you want to create a podcast, you can search in Google and you have all the answers in 20 minutes, right? If you want to produce a video show on LinkedIn, if you want to create Facebook ads for e-commerce, you can read and you have all the answer. But what differentiates successful people from people who are not is the consistent action. So those are the three things I would say.
Thank you so much, Ali. It's so conducive, and wow, so much gold in that. Thank you. And
Awesome.
Ali, what is your website? How can people find you?
Yes, so it's isocialu.com. That's my agency website. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I work with clients and we specifically do two things. Number one is we help you create your social community. And number two, which is more important for the business, in the process of creating the community, how do you generate lead, sales, and revenue? And then also, Ali Mirza is my name. You can find me on Instagram. I'm super active on LinkedIn these days, because LinkedIn, too, in my opinion, is evolving. It's becoming the next Facebook, minus the memes and the cat pictures. So you can send me a message on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, I'm starting to get more into LinkedIn as well. I started to be more interactive and posting a lot there, or almost every day.
It used to be, back in the day, you would go to LinkedIn when you need a new job, right? So it was a resume site. But I think they learned a lot from Facebook. So I call LinkedIn is a professional video storytelling or professional storytelling platform. They have introduced native video. The messaging has improved. The company pages are different now. So I think anyone who's in B2B, they should definitely pay more attention to LinkedIn right now.
That's a great nugget of advice. Thank you for that, Ali. And thank you
welcome.
for being here with us. And
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you really soon.